Hello aspirants, welcome to another high-yield explainer right here on the Rungta IAS Academy channel. Today, we're decoding a seriously dense and absolutely critical topic for your General Studies Paper 2 International Relations syllabus. We're talking about India's global push and the massive May 2026 diplomatic blitz. I've got my co-faculty here with me to help break down this unprecedented wave of global outreach. Let's just dive straight in, because this single month, it's packing in enough geopolitical movement to fill an entire year of current affairs.
Thank you, sir. Hello, students. So, the fundamental question we really have to ask ourselves as future administrators is, why May 2026? What we're witnessing right now is an absolutely packed schedule. We have our Prime Minister and our External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, literally crisscrossing Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Indian Ocean region, all within just a few weeks. They're hosting counterparts from BRICS, the Quad, and running major summits. We need to analyze not just where they're going, but exactly why this intense outreach is happening right at this very moment.
Absolutely. To really grasp that why, we need to rewind a little to the immediate trigger from April 2026. That was the 11th Heads of Missions Meet. This was actually the first global gathering of India's envoys in nearly 4 years. And at this meet, PM Narendra Modi was very explicit. He directed our ambassadors and high commissioners to dramatically improve India's image through proactive and positive messaging. He specifically used the word anubhavi, which translates to experienced. A prime example we discussed was deploying a seasoned politician like Dinesh Trivedi as the new High Commissioner to Dhaka. It's a very deliberate, strategic deployment of experienced hands to manage our neighborhood-first policy.
Exactly right, sir. And when you track the primary reports on these developments, it's clear the Prime Minister expressed some serious concern over the slow speed in communication. He really drove home the point that our missions need to be much faster in projecting Indian narratives and reacting to developments in host countries. Now, for your mains answers, this phrase, speed of narrative building, is a fantastic point to drop in when you're discussing the operational challenges of Indian diplomacy and diaspora connect. It shows you really understand the mechanics at play.
Okay, so let's structure these facts. We can neatly categorize this massive diplomatic traffic into two clear buckets: bilateral engagements and multilateral forums. On the bilateral side, we've got crucial incoming visits. Vietnamese President To Lam is arriving in Delhi to hash out defense cooperation, trade, and critical technologies. We've also got Cyprus President Christodoulides visiting, plus the PM's planned stopover in the UAE. Then, on the multilateral side, it's just as heavy. We have Dr. Jaishankar's CARICOM tour over in the Caribbean, the BRICS ministers meeting, the Quad foreign ministers meeting, hosted right here by India, with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio expected to attend, and, incredibly, the revival of the India-Africa Summit after more than a decade.
Yeah, and mapping out this timeline really reveals the sheer density of the schedule. I mean, from May 5th with President To Lam right through to the 30th with the India-Africa Summit. You really need to notice the heavy lifting happening mid-month. You've got the BRICS ministers meeting from the 14th to the 15th. That is followed immediately by PM Modi's grueling 5-nation Europe tour from the 15th to the 20th. He's covering the Netherlands, Sweden, Norway, Italy, and the Vatican. A vital part of that tour is the Nordic India Summit in Oslo. Aspirants, if you can memorize the flow of these events, it's going to allow you to cite very recent, high-impact examples right there in your exam.
But as we all know, diplomacy does not happen in a vacuum, right? There are massive geopolitical hurdles that are currently overshadowing all this outreach. We're looking at the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict, and of course the severe war and crisis in West Asia. The Hormuz Strait blockades? Those are a top agenda item for the upcoming Indian Ocean dialogue. And BRICS is facing some really deep internal friction right now. Previous meetings were actually disrupted because of intense differences between new members Iran and the UAE over the West Asia conflict. There's also been noticeable pushback against India's attempts to soften the language regarding the Israel-Palestine and Gaza issues. You absolutely must analyze these events with these specific constraints in mind.
Spot on. And that brings us to the real core of why we are doing this, how you apply it to your UPSC preparation. This entire May 2026 Blitz maps perfectly onto your GS2 topics, specifically bilateral, regional, and global groupings involving India. When you sit down to write about the neighborhood-first policy, make sure you use the keyword anubhavi diplomacy. It shows the examiner you are completely up to date. When you're discussing the effect of policies of developed and developing countries, bring in the BRICS friction and the European free trade discussions. And finally, don't forget the PM's directive on deepening our connect with the Indian diaspora. Use trade, critical tech, and diaspora as your structural subheadings to build a really solid answer.
Let's wrap up this explainer with a real challenge for your personality test preparation. Consider this mock question. Imagine the panel asks you, analyze India's multi-alignment strategy in light of the May 2026 diplomatic visits amidst the ongoing West Asia and European conflicts. Think about it. How exactly would you balance India's defense talks with Vietnam, its Quad engagements with the US, and that incredibly delicate balancing act within BRICS alongside Iran and Russia? Really synthesize the facts we've discussed today to form a nuanced, strategic viewpoint. Thank you so much for joining us on Rungta IAS Academy aspirants. Keep studying, keep analyzing, and we will see you in the next explainer.